Good morning. Welcome to my video this morning. I'm here with our one-word devotional. I'm Gary, one of the pastors here at Center Point, and I got the privilege of sharing our one-word devotional with you. Today I chose the word promise. Now before I get there, I want to talk about another word, hopeless. You know, it's halfway, we're a third of the way through 2021, and in 2020 we couldn't wait for 2021 because we just wanted to get through 2020, and now we're in the middle of 2021, a third of the way through, and we can't wait to get rid of 2021 because we're still not through this pandemic. It's just one thing after another, and we just can't seem to get over this threat of the pandemic. We just can't seem to move beyond that. You know, and I was thinking about that. You know, what's interesting, it just creates this sense of hopelessness. But I was looking at our news, we had the fires that went up there, almost burnt my mom and dad's cabin up there in the mountains. You know, the East Coast had the hurricane and the flooding on the East Coast. You know, we have those threats go through, but they go through and they pass on, and then we can kind of move on. You know, yeah, there's frustrations, there's aggravations, there's struggles. All that goes on, but we're able to move on. There's not this sense of hopelessness because we can move on. With this pandemic, we just can't seem to move on. It just keeps one thing after another, and it just seems to feel hopeless. It just seems, when are we going to go on? When can we move on beyond this? And so what I wanted to talk about this morning is promises. That we can count on God's promises, that God keeps His word, and that His promises are something we can depend on. I had several promises I thought would be good for us right now. The Lord Himself goes before you, and He will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Deuteronomy 31:8. What a great promise during this pandemic that we can have. Or maybe this one's more for me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. You know, it's a tough time right now, and just tired. You know, we can't, we went out to a store this morning, and you have to have a mask, or you don't have to have a mask. One did, one didn't. What do you do? How do you do? And it just gets old, and it gets tiring. And there's all these promises that God, literally hundreds of promises God has for us. You know my favorite one, that I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me, Philippians 4:13. That's a promise that I cling to, that I depend upon. Or maybe one just a few verses later when Paul writes that God will supply all your needs according to His riches in heaven. Or you can read the Beatitudes and read those promises. See, God keeps His word. And one of the great examples of God and His faithfulness is Abraham and the promise God made to Abraham. That recounts a story in the book of Hebrews. And here's what it says. No one is greater than God. So He made a promise by His own name when He said to Abraham, I, the Lord, will bless you with many descendants. I like that because it tells me two things about God. First of all, it says in His own name. These promises aren't on me. It's not on what I can do, what's possible with Gary, what's possible with some doctor, what's possible with some government. The promises are based on God. And what can God do? He's all-knowing, all-present, and He's all-powerful. See, we have a God. He can. That's one of the things I wrote down here. He can. I can count on God because He can. But the second part of that is I also count on, and it says, and He will give them the descendants. God will. Not only can God do it, but God will do it. That's what His promises tell us. That God can and God will work in our behalf. It doesn't depend on us. It doesn't depend on our character. I like what it says afterwards. I went through this, and, it's not about God's, when He gives a promise, you can expect it. It's not a maybe. It's not a wait and see. We'll check how you're doing later. It's none of that. God's promises are based on His faithfulness, not mine. Because here's what it says after that. Hebrews 6:15 says this. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham obtained the promises. That's where hope comes. Waiting patiently. But when I thought about that, and let me tell you, we're going to have a great time with that word on Sunday as we think about patience. Really, he waited patiently. He had to flee a famine. He had to flee those who pursued to kill him, that wanted his wife. He tried to help God out with His promise, with his wife's handmaid. He waited patiently. No, I think he waits like you and I. But I want to encourage us, because when it says patient there, man, he endured. He hung on to the promises of God. That's what I want to ask us to do. You want hope? Hang on to the promises of God. Wait patiently. I don't know how patience is. I'm not a patient person. Those who know me know I'm not a patient person. But I know one thing. My God can and my God will. He's a faithful God. So count on God during this time. We're going to have a great time. We're beginning a new series Sunday. He still holds the whole world in His hands. You might remember that song. God does. And we can count on God. We're going to find an anchor Sunday in the promises of God. So I encourage you to join me then. But I end with this. Not one of the Lord's good promises to the house of Israel failed. Every one was fulfilled. Not one failed. I want to tell you, God keeps his word. He can, he will, he's faithful. Yes, it's tough, but God wins. God bless you. Have a great week. I'll see you Sunday. We'll have a great time. Whether you join me online, Facebook, YouTube, or you're sitting in here with us, you're with us, and we'll enjoy God and his promises. God bless you. I love you. Take care. I'll see you Sunday.